Person borrows $15,000 to buy a car. This is probably the most closest realistic thing that might happen to you. Some of you have probably already bought a car. Some of you are thinking about buying cars, right? Often when you go to buy a car, you actually don't have enough money. So you have to borrow money. And when you borrow money, they charge you interest. And you pay more for that car than what you bought for it because you're paying interest. But it's a way for you to buy something when you don't have the money. Which might be important because if you don't have a car, you can't get to your work. And if you can't get to work, you can't make money. So you kind of need to buy the car to make money at times. So here, $15,000 to buy a car. Person can only afford $300 a month. And the loan will be repaid with equal monthly payments at 6% annual interest compounded monthly. How long is this going to take to pay for your car? And again, this formula would be given to you, but not only would it be given to you, it would explain that the present value is how much the loan is. So that's where we would put our $15,000 in. The R is your payment, so we would put our $300 in there. It would tell you that the one is just, no, it wouldn't tell you the one is a one. You just have to know that the numbers are still numbers. But it would tell you that the I is the interest rate per compounding period as a decimal. So it'd be 0.06, it's compounded monthly, divided by 12, to the negative n, square bracket, all divided by 0.06 divided by 12. And I'll take the purple box out again and highlight the power. So this is what we need to get by itself. Now, I think it's really important to know this math and to know that there's probably the apps that are available or asking Alexa are super helpful, but you need to know what question to ask Alexa, right? We're gonna know how to solve this by hand, so we could, but you would probably like to figure out oh, what difference does it make if I buy a little bit cheaper car, a more expensive car? How does that affect me? How much is this car going to cost me in the end? Okay? How much is the bank going to make off of me? You should get a little bit angry when the bank's making money off of you because that motivates you. I love not paying the bank extra money. Okay, so first we'll do the math. We want to get this by itself. So again, I'm going to multiply both sides by 0.06 divided by 12 so that these cancel out, but I have to do that on this side as well. Take out my calculator. You get 75? So rewrite everything. Make sure you include all the brackets. Don't forget a negative. Next, I'm going to divide by the 300. 0.25. And as soon as I divide by that 300, I technically don't need my square brackets anymore. That's fine. You can change to a fraction as well. Yeah, you can use fractions or decimals. Both will be fine. Now I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides. And this is the place where I see students make the mistake. Be very careful. When you move the 1 over, that negative, that subtract sign, doesn't disappear. Okay, be careful with that. Right? And technically, this is what we put the purple box around. That negative is not in that purple box. So I also find students take the log of both sides right now early, before they should. Can you take the log of a negative number? No. You can't take the logarithm of a negative number. So I need to move this negative over by multiplying or dividing by a negative 1, and now I would get positive 0.75, and now I have this power with the negative exponent by itself. All of that work Basically, no marks given to you. But if you make mistakes, they will take marks away. It's like a bad situation for you. Now we can take the log of both sides. This is a mark. Such an easy mark. I'll even take my time and enjoy it. I'll enjoy that mark. Negative n. Oh, I shouldn't have enjoyed the mark so much. I forgot the negative. And now I can bring that negative n out in front and enjoy that mark. That's another whole mark you get. So nice. And now I just want to get n by itself. Well, I can get n by itself by taking the log of 0.75 and dividing by the negative and the log, right? So I divide by the negative and the log. And I take out my calculator and see what n will be. Quit. Use my fraction button. Log of 0.75. Divided by negative, make sure you use the negative sign, not the subtract sign. Log of 1 plus 0.06 divided by 12. 57.680. Again, I'll write 3 decimal places. And then I'll go back and read my question to say, does it want me to round? So how many monthly payments? So technically, $57 payments wouldn't be enough. You would make 58 payments. If you wanted to find out, you would make 57 full payments. And 1 partial, smaller payment. But I'm going to take the 57.680, and I'm going to multiply that. What were we paying per month? $300? How much are we going to pay for this $15,000 car? $17,304. So you are giving the bank an extra $2,000 for that car. But you have to decide, do I need to do that, right? Because in your head, you're like, I need a car because I need to get to work. Okay? Or you might go, oh, now that I know that it's going to cost me that much more, well, maybe I take the bus and I don't buy it. But that's annoying because it's convenience, right? So we make those decisions in our life, but it's important to know the math behind it in how much you're going to pay. Okay? I read a statistics, like one of the places where they have the highest interest rates. Like this car was paying, you paid 6% interest. Do you know what place you can borrow money, but you have to pay the highest interest rates on? Credit cards, right? So a credit card is super nice because you can just go and you can buy stuff. And they don't charge you any interest unless you don't pay at the end of the month. And then they actually kind of encourage you not to pay at the end of the month. They're like, Madison, you owe $1,000 for that nice new pair of shoes you bought. They're really nice. And at the end of the month, they're like, Madison, you owe $1,000, but you only have to pay $10 if you'd like. And you're like, really? Sweet, I only have to pay $10? So then you pay only the $10 because you're like, that's not bad. And then they can start charging you interest. And usually credit cards start charging 18. Lots of them are like at 18% interest or higher. The more benefits they give you, the higher interest rates they have. So, like, if you can pay your credit cards off every month, they're actually a huge advantage. right? I have a credit card that gives me money back at the end of the year, and I make sure I never have it go late, so I never pay them interest. And they're like, there's enough people out there that are paying interest that they give me money back at the end of the year. So I like it. It's like making money for free, okay? But you gotta be careful, because you miss one payment, and then all that extra bonuses you would have got is going to come back and hurt you, because they're gonna really charge you a lot of interest. I read a statistic that, I don't know if this is completely true or not, but the average American pays $300 for every $100 they spend on their credit card. So the average American, when you buy something with their credit card, they're actually paying triple that price. So like you spent on Black Friday, you're like, stood in line overnight to get into a store to get a really good deal on a TV. And even though it was a good deal and you didn't have the money, if you spend triple for that because you can't afford it, that's dangerous. So some good advice with credit cards. Pay them off every month. Don't let them hit that 21%. Because I'm just curious, we're gonna put this car into that program. And we're gonna look at what would have happened to this car had we bought it on the credit card at 21% instead of 7%. So I'm gonna go back to that finance program, the TVM solver. We had 6%. This time, the present value, you're getting the car. Technically, you're not going to try to put it in your pocket, but anytime you get something, it's positive. So we put the $15,000 as positive. You're making $300 payments. That's coming out of your pocket and going to the car company. In the future, you do not want to owe them any more money. You're making monthly payments, and it's compounded monthly as well. So now we can go up and solve for this. Here we go. Alpha, solve, and we get the 57.650 really quickly. A lot faster than all the math that we had to do. But now, I'm curious, if you had this on credit card instead, and it is not uncommon for people to say, what does your credit card get? You'll hear, oh, I have $15,000 of credit card debt right now. That's actually not uncommon. If they are paying the minimum payment of $300 a month, the credit card says, you only have to pay $300 a month. This could be disastrous. We're going to see what happens. 93 payments now to pay this off. If I take that 93 and times it by 300, you now paid $28,000 for your car instead of the $17,000. Interest rates, small changes in interest rates can make huge changes in the amount of money that you get. Now, a car is a big purchase, right? Because if I would, like, just curious, did anyone bring $15,000 to school today? No, okay. It's probably good not to admit it, right? It would feel really nerve-wracking if you had $15,000 in your bag right now. But that's a lot of money, right? Feel a little bit nervous if you have that. And that's a big purchase. Car is a big purchase, but for most people, that's not the biggest purchase they make in their life. What's one of the biggest purchases people make in their life? House. Now, houses are good compared to cars because the $15,000 car in 5 years, what do you expect? It's going to be worth less. There are some things that you buy that decrease in value. Right? Now, a lot of things you buy decrease in value. Most of them decrease to nothing. Right? Once I'm done with these pair of pants, I probably can't sell them. Nobody will be like, ooh. But a house actually increases in value, but houses are expensive. So what we can do is we can use this program to figure out different things about houses. So let's say you're wanting to buy a house. Most houses you pay over 25 years. So we're going to start with, if you took 25 years and you paid monthly, does it make sense that you would make 300 payments? Interest rates for houses are quite a bit lower. Like right now, you could probably get 4 or 5%. So we'll start with 4%. And you have to make a down payment on the house, but the rest of the money is your mortgage, is what the bank is borrowing you. So let's say we're buying a starter house in Winnipeg. They're pretty expensive now. Any guesses what a starter house in Winnipeg would probably cost around? 300,000, 350. So let's say you made a down payment and you still owed $300,000. Okay? In the future, you don't want to pay anything. You're making monthly payments. One of the things that's nice about the laws in Canada is banks are only allowed to compound interest on mortgages twice a year. So they're not charging you interest as often, which is good for you, but you're going to find out, and the important thing I hope you learn from today, is that the interest rate is the biggest thing that's going to save you money in the long term. So, what we're going to start off right now is we're going to find out if you did a 25-year mortgage and it was a $300,000, how much would you have to pay a month? It's not going to be $300. You're going to hit the alpha and the solve button. $1,500 a month to buy that house. Okay? If we look at taking that number, and I go right to the end of this, because you can do math right in here, and I say times 300, because I made 300 payments. I will find out that this $300,000 house, even at a low interest rate of 4%, you will pay the bank an extra $173,000. That should bother you a little bit, because that's just money the bank is making off of you. Now, chances are, this is the nice thing about houses, is chances are at the end of that 25 years, your house will be worth more than that. But still should bother you a little bit that you're paying that much interest. So I'm going to write it on the board here, because I want to show you how you can use a little bit of knowledge of math to save yourself lots of money. Okay? 473, that's our starting number. Okay? So understanding how interest rates work, don't just settle right away for an interest rate. Get different quotes. Negotiate. If you spent a whole day, 8 hours, and maybe you're married and your partner at this time is like, you're crazy, why are you spending so much time on this? And you're like, but I managed to get it down to 3.5. Now the average person, if someone says, oh, it went from 4 to 3.5, the average person is like, that's tiny, that's 0.5. Why did you waste your whole day? You could have done the dishes or something, right? They're going to be mad at you. But you're going to say, well, if I change it to 3.5, I can solve for my payments now. They were $1,500 and something, now they're $1,497. So I take that, okay, and I times that by 300, and just that 0.5%, we're now at 450. I'll write that number down. Round it up as 449. So you spent a whole day getting 0.5%. We just do the math there. What is that? $24,000. Okay. There's a lot of really nasty jobs I would do. Someone said you will get $24,000 to do this job. I would be like, okay, that sounds terrible. That you're going to be sifting through raw sewage all day. I'm like, okay, I can do that for one day for $24,000. But that's a lot of money that you save just by changing it 0.5%. So knowing how these things affect your mortgage can save you a ton of money. Another thing that people don't realize with their mortgage, okay? I'm going to show you a couple of other tiny things that you can do with your mortgage. So right now we got it down to $14.97. We're paying monthly. Let's say you decide not to pay monthly, but to pay every 2 weeks. How many weeks in a year? 52. So by paying every 2 weeks, you would make 26 payments in a year, times 25 years, same amount of time. Now we're making 650 payments, but we're paying 26 times per year. Okay? If we do, actually, I'm going to keep that at 26 times per year. Oh, this has to change back to 2. Compounding is only 2 times per year. We're going to keep the amount the same. You say, I'm still going to pay the same amount as I was paying monthly. So I'm going to just say, cut that in half. Because usually there's 2 weeks in a month. But every once in a while, you'll hit 3 weeks in a month. Because if you did $750, that would be 24 payments if it was matched up perfectly. But now you're going to have a couple of months you're going to pay extra. So normally it should take 650 payments to make it. But by doing those extra payments, alpha solve, you bring it down to 572. How much of a difference does that make? Times 5, 750, not a lot. But we were at 449, that's another 20 grand you just saved. Just by making 2 extra payments a year. That means 2 months of the year, you have 3 mortgage payments and you're going to have to scrimp by. But by doing that, we've taken off another $20,000. Just knowing these things, the average person doesn't worry about that. It's not effective. Okay? The other thing that people, what happens to people when you're buying a house is usually you're buying a house when you're younger and just getting your job. And you can only afford a certain amount. But then, with any job that you're in, you will either get promoted or your years of experience give you a raise. And so now you start making more money. So now you have a decision. When you make more money, you have a decision to make. Am I going to use that money to keep buying nice shoes? Or I could take that extra money and decide to pay off my mortgage faster. What does that do? So now, instead of being able to afford $750 per month, you can afford $1,000 per month. So you up your payments. How much money does that save you? I'm going to go back and see, well now, alpha solve, we're down to 383 payments. I like this because the math is really easy for me to figure out, because I can times that by 1,000 in my head. We're now at 383,556. I'll even round it up. 384,000. Compared to our number at the beginning, we're now almost $100,000 less than we started. That's $100,000 you get to keep. The other thing that's fascinating about this is that by doing those things, we're down to 383 payments. We're making 26 payments per year. And instead of having to keep paying things for up to 25 years, we've cut it down to 15 years. You're paying it that much faster. And that means 15 years from when you buy it, you no longer have those big payments all the time. Yes, you can't have as nice as shoes early if you decide to go this route. But then when it's done, you can go out and like that pair of shoes, those Nike Airs from 1982 that you've always wanted, you can now go out and buy them. And because you've saved $100,000 in money. So knowing that the biggest thing that affects it is interest rate, okay? I want to show you, you should talk to your grandparents and your parents about what is the highest interest rates they've ever seen for houses, okay? And you'll, like, there's been some crazy times. There's been interest rates where houses went up to 18%. So if I just decide I'm going to go just back to a normal, I'm paying monthly, 25 times 30, 300 payments. When this happened at 18%, people actually left and said, I can't buy a house, it doesn't make sense. Because when it was monthly at the very beginning, do you remember it was around $1,500 a month? Now it's $4,500. If you bought this house for $300,000 at 18% interest, 25 years later, when you're done, you would have paid $1.36 million for that house. Over $1 million in interest would go to the bank.
What makes the interest rate like fluctuate?
Interest rate fluctuates based on inflation and economics. So for example, right after COVID, interest rates went up higher than was before. You might have heard people or heard your parents saying, oh no, our mortgage is coming up, and we used to be getting 2% or 3% interest rate. Now the best we can find is 5 or 6%. I don't know if we can afford to keep doing what we were doing, because now it makes your payments go up a lot. Now, if you talk to your grandparents, they would say, yeah, boo-hoo kids, which are your parents, right? Because your parents are your grandparents' kids. They're like, we went through the 80s when things were like at 18%. And this is what would happen. But your parents would say, but houses are way more expensive now. And there's all these discussions. Yes?
Can they just change the interest rate, like, after you already paid the house, or after you already started your payments? Would they
So
be
what-
able to switch the interest on you
Yes.
during your payments?
Yes and no. Okay. So the way that mortgages work in Canada is you make an agreement, and you make an agreement for a certain amount of time. Usually it's 5 years, but sometimes it's shorter. You can do shorter periods. And there's two choices for the type of mortgage you would go with. One is called fixed, and one is called variable. So on a fixed one, if I agree with the bank, 3% for 5 years, and the interest rates go way up, they can't charge me more because we agreed on 3% for 5 years. Once those 5 years are done, and now I'm negotiating again, now they're like, well, the best we can do now is 5%. But I could switch to another bank at that time. Most people don't switch because it's like, oh, it's work. I'm like, but if the work saves you $30,000, it's a good day. Take a day to really check it out, because you might save yourself a lot of money if you do that. A variable mortgage, if you pick that, sometimes they say whatever the prime interest rate is, add a half to that. And if interest rates in Canada go down, your mortgage goes down. Your interest rate goes down. If they go up, yours goes up. So you're a little bit riskier there, but it would be a decision that you had to make. Like in the first house that I bought, I ended up choosing the variable, and I got lucky, but the variable started 1% less than the fixed one. So I was like, in doing the beginning math, I was like, I know how much that 1% makes a difference. I'm willing to take the risk. Even if it goes up so that they're the same, I'm still saving big interest at the beginning when I owe the most money. And I got lucky that it went down. So I started at a lower one, and when it went down, I got the advantage of that going down. So those are things that you have to, there's more than one option. Do you do 3 years or do you do 5 years? Some people now did shorter ones because it was so high, and then they hoped that it would go down. Other people did longer ones because they were afraid it would just keep going up. So you're kind of trying to predict the future, and there's a lot of things that happen in life that are not predictable.
Like how often does it change?
Usually, so a mortgage is every 5 years. So every 5 years you make a decision. How often do the interest rates change? Sometimes they're stable for a very long time, but I would say in the last 3 years, like there was a time where the bank was every 3 months saying it's going up 0.25, going up 0.5, going up 0.25. By raising the interest rates, it makes it like people were spending too much money. And if people are spending too much money, then, or people have too much money to spend, and everybody wants oranges, what does that do to orange prices? Orange prices go up. So you get inflation going up. So in one way that countries try to stop inflation is they make it more expensive for people to have money, then people don't spend money, and then because people aren't spending money, that brings the prices down. But when people aren't spending money, the people who need people to spend money don't make money, and then that causes economic problems. So it's always this like balance of trying to make the economics work as best as possible for everyone. Okay? If house prices are going, like house prices are skyrocketing, that's because it might be people can borrow money too easily at too cheap a price. Makes the prices go up. So in order to make house prices be more reasonable, they make it more expensive for you to get the house with the interest rates going. So it's always, it's a challenge that way. But that being said, yes, you have to pay interest, and you pay, this is extreme. This is way too much. But even at the very beginning, when we had $473,000 for this $300,000 house, at the very beginning, that's $173,000 that you're giving to the bank, okay, over 25 years. That's a lot of money given to the bank. However, if you compare it to renting a house, you're paying, even cheap renting, you're paying $1,000 times 12 times 25. You just decided to rent, you're paying somebody else $300,000 that you don't get back. If you pay the bank that $173,000, at least at the end of the day, you own that house. And that house is something that goes up in value. So it could be very beneficial for you that way. Okay, I'm going to give you some questions. I'll tell you a couple more stories. This one, usually I don't keep the video going for the stories, but this one has lots of stories on the